and for presentation to technical committee to grant the final registration license, which is valid for 10 years. After the 10 years, the product will be submitted for re-registration and re-evaluation again. We have a list of reference countries, including USA, Germany, Canada, Italy, and they are listed in the presentation. We have a condition in the ministerial decrees that imported products should be marketed in a reference country, but we can present any other product from a non-reference country which is not marketed in a reference country to the technical committee to consider exemption from this condition. Also, an inspection will be required from EDA in these cases to ensure the compliance with the GMP. Here is a comparison between the three ministerial decrees. All are CTD format except for the first and the oldest one, 425. The time frames is 1 year for 425. 645 is a fast track pathway. 820, as I said, it has a commitment from EDA to be fully registered in 1 month for FDA and EMA approved drugs, 2 months for FDA or EMA approved drugs. It means it's registered only in one of them. For the CTD submissions, 6 months. The submission for 425 is as we showed in the workflow. The submission for 645 is we can add the quality module evaluation. For 820 submission of the whole file at once after name approval. It's a parallel submission. The requirements are the same for stability bioequivalence. We are asking for accelerated and long-term stability study on 3 production batches or 3 primary batches for the cases where the product is just registered in the country of origin. Bioequivalence is required if applicable. EDA labs analysis will be required. Assessment of the quality module will take place in the decree 645 and 820 as within the cases of FDA and EMA approvals. Reliance will be applied in this part to fasten the process of registration. The essential requirements for imported products registration, we will ask for a CPP from a certificate of pharmaceutical product from the competent authority of the country of origin. We will ask for agency agreement or authorization letter to a local applicant in Egypt. And we will ask for the GMP to ensure the compliance of the facility of production. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the valuable information and the presentation on the regulatory authority of Egypt. And I hope that we will learn so many things from the presentation, and definitely if it's any sort of question will be from the exporter side, they definitely will ask in the question answer session. And for
I'll be there for any question.
Ma'am, the question will be asked in the question answer session in last. But okay. For now, I would request Ms. Meena Abdul Ghafoor, who is the head of international relations at AUP Egypt, to please give give the information about the department and the other issues regarding the registration of Egypt and for the pharmaceutical sector.
Hello, and thank you so much. I'm really glad to be joining today and to speak on behalf of UPA, which is the Egyptian Authority for Unified Procurement, Medical Supply and the Management of Medical Technology. And can you please give me a moment to share my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you can. Ma'am, you can share the screen.
Sure. I'm just trying to wait. Can you see it right now? can you see my screen, or there's a problem? Hello?
No, Mena, we can't see your screen. I think maybe if you try. Yes, we've started screen sharing, and please turn on your video as well. Thank you.
So I guess now you can see everything, or is my video still off? I'm not sure. Okay. So as I said, UPA is the Egyptian Authority for Unified Procurement, Medical Supply, and the Management of Medical Technology. And now I'm going to tell you more about UPA. And this is the agenda for the presentation. So first I'll discuss briefly about UPA, and then move on to the history of establishment of this entity, the services we provide, our objectives, strategy of development, and then our recent achievements. Now, about UPA, this entity is a recently established entity. It was actually established in 2019 when the Egyptian government, or the Egyptian regime in general, decided to what they call as decentralize the healthcare sector. Why is that? They were aiming to much more increase its efficiency and make its services much more effective. And accordingly, UPA was established. What UPA aims to do is to basically contribute effectively to the core values of Egypt's 2030 healthcare vision, which are the equity, solidarity, and efficient allocation of resources. In addition to that, UPA aims to be a solution to some of the challenges that the healthcare sector faces. And these are economic and budget pressure. Of course, as you know, all countries tend to face what we call as budget constraints, and this affects the amount of GDP that tends to be allocated to the healthcare sector. And that's why the Egyptian government decided to establish the entity of UPA to allow more and efficient allocation of resources. Other than that, the increased demand. As you all know, the Egyptian population is really huge, and it's continue to increase year by year. And this causes us to have a large pool of demand. And hence, we also need a solution for that. Number three is out of pocket expenditure. And I'll tell you how UPA is currently contributing in that to, of course, minimize this thing. And other than that, we have the misuse of resources. This is one of the problems that the Egyptian healthcare sector faces, and UPA is actually trying to minimize that. So this brings us to our vision, and our vision is to be a strategic health technology management entity to enable efficient utilization of resources and a sustainable, equitable access to all Egyptians. And we believe that being a centralized procurement and supply interface, we can ensure equitable access of medicinal and health technology products. And how is that? Through conducting evidence-based technology assessments, value-driven procurement methods, and last but not the least, through establishing a robust and a sustainable supply chain. Now, moving to the operational framework of UPA, UPA tends to have like three main arms. And the first arm is a department responsible for the centralized management of health technology. The second arm is a centralized management for procurement, and the third arm is a centralized management of medical supply. And as you can see, there are sub-departments for each department. So for instance, under the centralized administration of medical supply, we have a sub-department for inventory management, for logistics operations, and a department for a technical follow-up of contract implementation. Now, let me tell you briefly about the history of UPA. Before UPA came into existence, there was a committee responsible for procuring and supplying all the medicinal and the medical products in Egypt. And this was the Medical Supplies Procurement Committee. This was committee appointed by the Egyptian government in 2016. And as you can see, this committee was responsible for conducting several tenders to secure the requirements of all the governmental entities in Egypt. And moving through the timeline, in 2015, for instance, there was a tender in Berlin, Germany, and through the tender, the committee was able to provide the medical equipment requirements for new 6 hospitals. And these are governmental hospitals, of course. Similarly, in 2017 in Sharm el-Sheikh, there was also a tender going on, and through the tender, the committee was able to provide the medical supplies requirement for all the governmental hospitals. Now, moving to 2019, the government decided to like step up things and establish a governmental entity to be responsible for procuring and supplying medicinal and medical products. And they aim for it to be a unified procurement. And accordingly, in 2019, UPA was established, and its executive regulations were issued under the ministerial decree number 77 of 2020. We actually started operating in March 2020. Also, to shed a light on the achievements of the committee, in 2015, as I said in the Berlin tender, the estimated budget cost of the products that the committee was aimed to provide was actually $71 million. However, the committee successfully was able to cover it only with $42 million, allowing a direct saving of about 40%. Similarly, in 2017, the total estimated budget for the requirements of all the governmental hospitals in Egypt was $948 million. And successfully, the committee was able to provide them with $602 million, causing a direct saving of 36%. Now moving on to what we do, what are our services? We actually do a lot of services, and to shed light on some of them, UBA actually tends to prepare the plans, the programs, and the rules for the management of supply services to secure the needs of the requesting parties of all the governmental entities from both national and international sources. So we do both international procurement and national procurement. Other than that, we are actually aiming to establish an annual compilation system of all the needs of the governmental entities. And we also tend to compile, do a database of all the suppliers that Egypt is currently having. Other than that, we tend to prepare annual estimated budget necessary for the authority services in coordination with ministries of finance, planning, and all other beneficiaries and relevant entities. Other than that, we have our own procurement policies. Let me discuss this point, because this is really a crucial point. There is some procurement policies that are highlighted in the decree or in the law mandate. However, in addition to that, we have our own internal procurement policies. And then these procurement policies are specific to UPA and, of course, specific to Egypt. And these procurement policies are in compliance with both national and international standards. And of course, we take all the necessary measures to implement them. Now, other than that, we tend to also establish an integrated database of all the medical products located in the warehouses of all public Egyptian health facilities to monitor the needs, consumption, and any maintenance required. Now, moving to another service that we actually do, we also manage all the distribution systems of medical supplies, and we tend to conduct all the necessary checkups, of course, through maintaining the highest international quality standards. Now, moving to one more service, we actually tend to set a strategic plan for the development of the pharmaceutical industry to be able to achieve self-sufficiency, stimulate investments, and encourage supporting. And here I'm stressing on the local pharmaceutical industry. So we're actually encouraging international pharmaceutical companies to come and start manufacturing here in Egypt. Now, actually, this is to sum up our services. We believe that we have the 5 R's, the right HTA, and HTA stands for Health Technology Assessment, with the right patient, the right time, the right cost, and the right quality. We'll be able to, one, efficiently allocate the medical resources in Egypt and create a health care system with an equitable access to all Egyptians. Now, moving more to our objectives. One of our objectives is to basically achieve financial sustainability for the Egyptian healthcare system, to attain all the core values that are mentioned in Egypt's 2030 healthcare vision, which again, equity, solidarity, and efficient allocation of resources, and of course, to maximize the country's resources as much as possible to increase the efficiency of the inventory management process, to open new markets for exportation from Egypt to the region, of course, to ensure the sustainability of the service through the continuous availability of medical products. And now, moving to the seventh objective, as I mentioned before, one of the challenges that the healthcare sector faces is out-of-pocket expenditure. And now Egypt is currently working on the Inclusive Health Insurance Project, and UPA is strongly and deliberately supporting this project. Now moving to the eighth objective, we're actually aiming to increase the competitiveness of the local pharmaceutical industry. 10, improving the country's trade balance by limiting imports and encouraging local production. Last but not the least, we're actually aiming to improve the business investment climate in Egypt, foster interregional collaborations, and of course, enhancing the productivity of the medical supply operations in Egypt. And now let me move to our strategy of development, or the methodology of how we will attain those objectives. So UPA has a current strategy, and this current strategy is for this year from 2020 to 2021. And we actually divided this strategy into 3 main prongs. The first prong is to focus on supply chain operations. And how is that? We started by identifying the procurement and the supply chain challenges that the Egyptian entities face. And then we moved to assess the demands and requests of these entities, exercised control over the medical product stocks, and we did that by creating a digital interface for procurement and supply. And last but not least, we're able to, and this was one of the main objectives, is to attain all the needs of all the governmental entities. The second prong is to focus on digitalization. We're actually aiming to digitalize the tender process, as this will enable and facilitate the process, and it will also enable several international suppliers to join the process and to join the governmental tenders that we are actually conducting. We're actually also aiming to develop an internal ERP system. And why is that? We wanted to automate all the authority office back functions, such as HR, finance, and also to develop a warehouse management system to support and optimize the warehouse functions. And at the end of the day, this will enable us to establish an integrated supply chain system, an automated system, of course, that will link everything from the supplier to the warehouse and of course to the requesting party. Now moving to the last but not the least, we don't only do procurement and supply, we also do assessment. And by this assessment, I mean health technology assessment. How we do that? We actually develop guidelines and regulations for the procurement process. And actually, this works in compliance with our procurement policies, of course. And we also, this department, this part is responsible for the studies. So we do aggregate demand studies, cost-effective studies, minimization analysis. And of course, also there is a department responsible for health technology assessment. And this department is responsible for data collection and budget planning. What I mean by budget planning is that our main aim is to enable all the governmental entities to like streamline their budgeting process and ensure that they
Ma'am, your voice is not so clear to us. Ma'am, Miss Meena? Are you there, ma'am? I think there is some technical issue due to which she is not answering. So we shall proceed further. And now I would request Ms. Sidra Haq, who is the TIA in Egypt, to please give a glimpse about the Egyptian pharmaceutical market so that the exporters may have information about that market.
Thank you so much, Sana. I hope everyone can hear me. It's unfortunate we lost Meena. She was just getting to a very important point of how our Pakistani companies can register on the digital interface. So I hope after I'm speaking, maybe we can get her to finish her very crucial part of the presentation.
Very well noted.
Okay, thank you so much, Sana and Dr. Shumaila from Team TDAP. Always thankful for your support. I'm so glad we had Dr. Mevish with us as well, representing PPMA, which we've been in good touch with them with the over the months. And thank you so much, Dr. Mona and Ms. Minna, for your participation. And obviously, the acting ambassador at the Embassy of Pakistan in Cairo, Mr. Shahnazar Khan, always for your support and humbling words. And thank you, everybody else. I'm so glad we have a sizable participation in today's webinar. I'm quickly going to share my screen, and please do allow it, Sana. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So I will be just giving a little brief on what trade currently is between Egypt and Pakistan, and giving a little overall brief to our pharmaceutical companies on where Egypt is in the pharma industry, because we generally get that question from our Pakistani companies that we don't really know where Egypt lies on the spectrum and how advanced they are. So this is just a brief glimpse in order to understand. This is the scheme of our presentation. I'm going to keep it very short and to the point. Just an overview, our bilateral trade figures are right in front of you. Our exports are gradually increasing. Our imports in the last year have nearly doubled due to a single large import of LNG, which has nearly doubled our imports. Africa's the fifth largest import partner. Egypt is the fifth largest import partner in Africa for Pakistan, and number 4 in exporting when it comes to the African region. Egypt itself is a country of 104 million, 12,700 USD GDP per capita. It's on the rise, one of the largest regional players in the MENA region, in the African region. And our trade in specific to pharma, Chapter H is code 30. The figures are right in front of you for the last 5 years, steadily being increased. 6.8 million USD was traded last year in 2019. Most of this is in one single aegis code, which is 3049099, which means a lot to the manufacturers. We send APIs over here. And Egypt's total import, however, is 1.9 billion in that very aegis code. The top suppliers in the aegis code 30, meaning the pharmaceutical products to Egypt, are Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, USA, Italy, etc. And these are our top main, the top suppliers to Egypt, so to say. So a little bit about the pharma sector in Egypt. What is it? How big is it? What do they do? Egypt is the largest population in the Arab world, and it is the largest pharma producer in the MENA region. And it's also the oldest one. It dates back to 1937. Most of the pharmaceutical producers already have GCC and Saudi FDA approval. A few of them are working towards EMEA approval, and a few have WHO pre-qualification. So currently, as of this year, start of this year, as we were informed by the Export Council, there are 154 pharmaceutical factories in Egypt employing around 95,000 workers. So it's a sizable industry. What is manufacturing in Egypt? What does it cover? Three main things. Public sector companies, which come under the term of Holy Pharma. There are local private sector companies, and lastly, the multinational corporations that are manufacturing over here. What do pharmaceuticals in Egypt, what do the local pharmaceutical manufacturers make? Here's a list right in front of you just to give you an idea of what are the main products that they are making. What are their export destinations? So you'll see many Gulf countries, you'll see many African countries also in the list. And these are their top 20 export destinations. And Egypt is a net importer of pharmaceuticals. So if we look at the figures from TradeMat at ITC, they're importing, and this is net imports, almost above 2.3 billion a year. So it's quite a sizable market when it comes to pharma. So what are the authorities? Just so we can kind of understand the framework. I know it's new, could be new territory for most of our manufacturers and exporters. So basically you have the Ministry of Health, which is the primary supply caregiver. It overlooks all the government hospitals, etc. You have the Egyptian Drug Authority, which is being revamped, and as Dr. Mona went into some detail, it is the authority that registers any sort of pharmaceutical and other medical products coming in. So they will be the authority which will be allowing any pharmaceutical to enter into the Egyptian territory. Holy Pharma is the conglomerate of public sector companies that is also coming in and representing those public sector manufacturing companies. So this is also an important entity. AUP, Ms. Mona, who will return after my presentation, she's just messaged us. She had some technical difficulties. They are a new authority which was started functioning this year, and they're revolutionary in the way that now they will regulate all the procurement for government in Egypt. So starting from this year, AUP is also a very, very important entity. So anything that goes into government hospitals, government clinics, any medical product that needs to go, and this covers pharma, surgical, etc., that needs to go to the government sector, it will come through AUP. So I think it's very important for us to understand how to register with AUP, our exporters and manufacturers, so that we can be on a sort of platform where we have access to these government tenders and how we can participate in these tenders. When it comes to FEI, which is the Federation of Egyptian Industries, they have a pharmaceutical chamber, which is kind of the counterpart of PPMA, and we would be very interested in connecting later PPMA and FEI and their pharmaceutical chamber, since that chamber represents the Egyptian manufacturers. And lastly, another important player in the pharma industry framework is the Egyptian Export Council for Medical Industries. Their job is to single-handedly focus on pushing for Egyptian exports of pharma, and not just the exports, but they're also very useful in trying to educate us and educate other countries on how joint ventures and joint manufacturing can take place within the Egyptian territory with foreign investors. So quickly, just a few major points. The pharmaceutical market is very huge in Egypt, but we need to start off exploring what we can do, what we can provide, and how we can work with them. The existing trade, though it is 6.8 million and it is on the rise, one of the top 5 products of exports from Pakistan to Egypt, it's still almost 0.3% of the whole market. So there's still a little work we need to actually do in understanding the framework and how we can understand the process of registering our finished pharmaceutical products. And this is why this webinar was so essential, that we needed to get this process going of getting that interest in our Pakistani manufacturers and exporters. So well above 2 billion, the whole market size. This is just it's much higher than 2 billion. The Egyptian government, as of now, is focusing heavily on joint ventures. And this could be of some interest to even our manufacturers to understand what benefits they can have, because the AMA, the African Medicines Agency, is something that's coming up in the years. It's been approved in spirit by 55 African member states. It's going to be it's ratified. It's going to be ratified by all members. But what the thought is to create the AMA along the lines of EMA. So this will be the new regulatory authority for all of Africa, in which the medical standards will be just one unified authority to allow trade within Africa. Obviously, this will require some time. We predict it will require some time, obviously, because the different countries and the different nations in Africa are at different levels of development. But this is on the cards, and it is in spirit. It has been approved. For Egypt alone, conservative figures estimate that there are 5 million out of 104 million of these people are grade A consumers who are willing to buy foreign brands of quality. Egypt, as of last year, they started overhauling their national insurance healthcare system. So since October 2019, they've rolled out in 5 governorates the process of, so to say, quote unquote, privatizing their national healthcare system, or revamping the whole system to give it a sort of sleek private sector look and appeal and service quality, obviously. So that's some good news for our pharma and surgical sector as well. Also, again, Egypt considers itself a sort of leader in the MENA area when it comes to manufacturing pharmaceuticals. And they've always been very focused on regional exports. So they've always tried to attain those quality standards and work with the authorities to attain those certifications. The government is focused on export-related growth, and in 2019, October 2019, there was a delegation that came from Egypt to Pakistan as part of the joint working group under the coordination of Ministry of Commerce in Pakistan and Ministry of Trade in Egypt. And there was a member of the Egyptian Export Council for Medical Supplies, and they did visit pharma in Rawalpindi and Islamabad, and what they came up with that perhaps our medical producers are unable to produce a large number of APIs that our regional competitors are more known for. This was one major observation they gave to me, which I would obviously want to share with my manufacturers and exporters as well. So what are the trade fairs that are of interest? Pharmacy Expo, more dedicated to pharmacy, but EG Medica, that's the main one. That's the oldest and biggest one. Unfortunately, this year couldn't be held due to COVID, and we also couldn't attend because we also started our trade section in January of this year. But it's supposed to be the biggest one, 15 country pavilions in the last one, and 55,000 footfall. So this is definitely one fair of interest that our pharmaceutical manufacturers, exporters, and the association should keep in mind when it times any delegation over here, that it should be timed around this time. So I think that's just a brief from my side. And thank you so much, Sana.
Thank you so much, Sidra. It was quite informative presentation about the Egyptian market for the pharmaceutical sector. I hope many of the exporters have won the information and definitely will capture the market as soon as possible. And the presentation of Ms. Meena was lost due to some technical issues. But before announcing her name, I would request the representative from the DRAP to give his speech. And after that, we will go with the remaining portion of the presentation of Ms. Meena. And now I would request Dr. Ubaidullah from the DRAP, please give us the complete details about the DRAP structure and its functioning for the Pakistani exporters of pharmaceuticals.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, I first want to congratulate TDAP and other authorities to interact with our Egyptian counterparts to enhance our mutual cooperation. In fact, we at DRAP are here. I'm Dr. Ubaidullah, Director of Station. On my right side is Mr. Abdullah. He's the Additional Director. And then Mr. Sadia Mehvesh is here. He's looking after the auditing at GMP. And Mr. Abdul, who is the focal person, the quality management system of the authority. So I will take about 10 minutes to present my presentation about the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. I think all participants now can see our presentation. So it is the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, which is an autonomous body under the administrative control of the federal government. We are based at Islamabad with our field offices at all the provincial chapters. In fact, we have 3 laboratories. One is the Central Drugs Laboratory for the testing of the pharmaceuticals, which is based at Karachi. Then it is the National Control Laboratory for the biologicals, which is primarily responsible for the lot release certification of all the biologicals. And then last one, and very important, is the Surveillance Laboratory, Federal Drug Surveillance Laboratory, which is at Islamabad, responsible for the post-marketing surveillance of all the drugs. In fact, Drug Regulatory Authority, although it was established in 2012, but previously it was a Drug Control Administration, which was mandated to look after the chapter of the drugs only. But then it was thought to be in line with the developed world and all the global regulation, and then the DRAP Act 2012 was enacted with the aim to regulate therapeutic goods. And now we are regulating allopathic drugs, biologicals, medical devices, alternate medicines and health products, and medicated cosmetics. So now our DRAP Act is in line with all the regulation of the world looking after all the therapeutic goods. Now it is our structure of the authority. Primarily it is the CEO of the authority and 13 divisions, which is manned by the 13 directors looking after various affairs, starting from the pharmaceutical evaluation, registration, licensing, GMP, pricing, then health and OTC product, including nutraceuticals, medical devices. Then there is a control drug division, which look after all the INCB, International Narcotic Control Board legislations. Pharmacy services look after all the ADR monitoring, pharmacovigilance, interaction with the UMC, Umsala Monitoring Center, and then biological division, and then there are some supportive divisions. So it is all our structure of the authority. If briefly we see that DRAP approves the clinical trials approval by the Pharmacy Services Division. Right now, Pakistan is one of the countries who are also conducting COVID vaccine trial for the phase 1 and phase 3 trial, and we are successfully doing it with the help of international partners. Similarly, we are in the phase of registration of the drugs, enlistment of alternative medicine and medical devices. Basically, registration of drug is in the field since 1976, but this alternate medicine and medical devices we are regulating since 2012. At the same time, all the pharmaceutical units are licensed by DRAP. Similarly, on all the alternate medicine and medical device manufacturers are also right now about 630 units, which is one of the highest figure of the EMRO region of the licensed unit pharmaceutical units are in Pakistan. looking after the domestic needs of 220 million population, and primarily we provide medication to about our nation to about 80%, 80 to 85% medications are locally manufactured. At the same time, all these units are audited as per the CGMP inspection guidelines of PICS, and our quality assurance division looks after all these activities. Similarly, pharmacovigilance activities, it is being supervised by the pharmacy services division. After the DRAP, we started our conversation and developed ourselves for the pharmacovigilance activities. Previously, we were the member of UMC, Uppsala Monitoring Center, as associate member. But now, due to our establishment of National Pharmacovigilance Center and provincial chapter as well, now we are the full member of the UMC and reporting all our ADR to the UMC WHO on regular basis. In fact, our strategic framework is 5-component approach. One is the regulation that we have already discussed, that DRAP Act is the main legislation. And after DRAP Act, we have framed various rules and regulation for all the therapeutic goods to materialize the regulation parameters. And the second one is the most important, is the harmonization. In fact, harmonization is very important if you want to move further in the international community. And after DRAP, we adopted all the parameters and legislation and regulation of the International Conference on Harmonization regarding our registration. And we adopted PICS guidelines for our GMP auditing and all the things. And we are now moving towards the certifications of the DRAP regulatory authority from the WHO as well. And we have achieved successfully 2 levels of the WHO certification. And in the coming year, WHO will come and audit us for the WHO listed authorities WLA status with same time at the certification of our laboratory. We are fortunate enough that our provincial laboratories, dust testing laboratories are also WHO pre-qualified, and right now 4 labs are pre-qualified by the WHO. Third point is automation. Now it is an era where you can search and you can do every activity on the online system by the automation process. And at the same time, we are following this strategy. And in the last month, we launched Pakistan Integrated Regulatory Information Management System with a common dashboard in which all our license units, registration database, and quality control, quality assurance, and GMP database is available at the same time with the title of Pakistan Integrated Regulatory Information Management System. Enforcement is another area which is one of the components for the GMP auditing and falsified products. Next slide. So all these are the rules and regulation which I have already shared. DRAP Act is umbrella legislation, Drugs Act, Health and OTC, and so on. As I have already shared about the international harmonization, these are the few achievements which we have achieved, that we are at level 2, looking for the level 3 in 2021, inshallah. We are the PICS. Previously, we were the pre-applicant, and now we have got the status of applicant. We have introduced the common technical document as the Egypt have done in 2016. Another very important is the 2D barcode on the packing of drug. And this 2D barcode is the track and trace for the drug product in the market as well. We are the signatory of the WHO Collaborative Registration Procedure. And at the same time, we are the full member of the UMC for pharmacovigilance. For the medical devices, we are the member of Asian Harmonization Working Party. And as I have already shared, that we have 3 pre-qualified laboratory, WHO pre-qualified laboratory in the public sector and 1 in the private sector as well. It is the automation which I have already shared: PIRAMS, track and trace, team software, National Essential Medicine List as a mobile app. And last one is very important, that is the VigiFlow database for ADR. On the basis of this VigiFlow database, we collect the data of the ADR from all over the country, and we analyze it in our pharmacovigilance center and then forward to the Uppsala Monitoring Center as for the as a major reporting center. Now it is the registration of the drug that we registered drug biologicals for 5 years, and then it is valid for 5 years. Then we renew after 5 years until it is suspended or cancelled. Primarily, we see that it is for the 10 years, but in our scenario, it is for the 5 years period for all the drugs. For the process of registration, these are the divisions which are responsible for the evaluation of the dossiers, pharmaceutical evaluation for the pharmaceutical products and biological division, then division of drug licensing being DML holder, then GMP by the quality assurance, central drugs laboratory for the testing, and then our provincial chapter labs as well. As far as exports are concerned, we are very much determined to increase our exports, and for that purpose, in line with the vision of our government of Pakistan and our Prime Minister, DRAP is fully committed to facilitate the export of our registration. And now we grant the export registration purely and on a very priority basis. And for this purpose, it is granted if all the application is complete within 15 to 20 days. At the same time, we grant the GMP certificates to our applicants on the basis of their inspection audit on the priority basis as well. And all these activities are being supervised by the export facilitation desk at our headquarters, Islamabad, which supervises all these export matters. Now it is the short abbreviated application for the export registration application, then requirements, GMP, and so on. All these things are only mandated to enhance our exports. As our Egyptian counterpart shared the reliance on the regulatory authorities, by the same way, probably there were 22 authorities in their presentation, but in Pakistan, we rely and collaborated with MOUs for the reliance with 19 regulatory authorities, which are mostly stringent regulatory authorities, and 2 agencies, that is the EMA and the WHO pre-qualified product as well. So by and large, all these are the same authorities which the Egyptian Drug Regulatory Authority also qualifies. Thank you very much for patiently listening to our presentation. And now over to TDAP and our host for discussion and for question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ubaidullah Saab, for the informative presentation about the DRAP and its functioning and its supports to the exporters of Pakistan to export their products to the different countries. Now, I would again request Ms. Meena Abdul Ghafoor, who is the head of the International Relation of, to please give her remaining presentation.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry to everyone for that technical issues, but the lights went out suddenly. So I'll reshare my screen and then we can resume.
Ma'am, is there any issue to share the screen from your end?
Yeah, I'm trying, but I guess there is something wrong.
Actually, you are allowed.
Can you please give me a second? I'm not sure.
Meena, I can run the presentation on my side and maybe you can speak.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll just share the screen.
Starting slide,
Now
the
you are
slide of the
allowed from
engagement.
you can share your screen.
Okay, let me just bring it up to the presentation slide number. Maybe I think we were on 21. So let me just bring that up and okay. I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, we
Yes.
Okay.
So here I was talking about the objectives of UPA, and among these objectives is to basically improve the country's trade balance by limiting the imports and improving the business investment climate, fostering inter-regional collaborations, and enhancing the productivity of medical supply chain operations. Can you please move on to the next slide? Thank you. And now this is our strategy of development, or the methodology that we will adopt in order to achieve those objectives. So we can actually divide this strategy into three main prongs. The first prong is supply chain operations, and we're actually aiming to enhance the efficacy and effectiveness of the supply chain operations in Egypt, of course, of medical products. And how we did that, we first identified the procurement and supply chain challenges that both the country and the entities face. And we tried to assess the demands and the requests of these entities, exercise control over the medical product stocks by creating a digital phase for procurement and supply. And we were aiming to attain all the needs of all the governmental entities. The second prong is digitalization, and we're actually aiming currently to digitalize all the processes, all the supply chain operations, and all the office back functions of UPA itself. One of also the main goals is to digitalize the tender process, as this will facilitate and give room for international suppliers to easily and effectively and efficiently join our tenders that we're actually aiming to launch in this year and in the next year. Now, other than that, we're also aiming to develop a warehouse management system to support and optimize all the warehouse functions of the warehouses that we're currently supervising and we're currently managing. And at the end of the day, we're going to have what we call an integrated supply chain system, an automated integrated supply chain system. Now, moving to the health technology assessment part, UPA does not only do procurement and supply, it also does assessments and studies. And we have a department responsible for that. So this department is actually responsible for developing guidelines and regulations for the procurement process. And these regulations goes in compliance with our procurement policies and to the procurement policies that were actually issued or mentioned in the law mandate of UPA. Other than that, this department or this unit is responsible for conducting several studies such as cost-effective analysis, minimization analysis, aggregate demand analysis, and we do that to kind of streamline the requests of the governmental entities with their budgets. And last but not the least, this department is also responsible for data collection and again budget planning. Can we please move on to the next slide? Now, moving on to the achievements of UPA. UPA actually started, as I said, operating in March 2020, and that was actually very challenging because we actually started operating during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we actually believe that our response to the COVID-19 pandemic was a successful story. Why is that? Because we're actually able to cover the demand of the country for PPEs through enhancing the manufacturing capacity of domestic producers in collaboration with relevant entities such as the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We were actually also able to secure a stock to confront the second wave that we're currently facing. And we actually did that with direct savings of 67% in the estimated cost. Other than that, we were actually able to raise the qualification standards of the distributors and suppliers that Egypt deals with. how is that? We actually established a committee to set all the technical specifications for all the medicinal and health technology products. Other than that, we actually have set some regulations and eligibility criteria for the suppliers, and this will kind of enable them to successfully register on our digital interface and be among our suppliers. And last but not the least, we're actually also assisting those who do not meet the criteria in raising their qualifications in order to be able to register on our digital interface or on our system and be among our suppliers. Other than that, we were actually also able to provide aid to neighboring countries. And we actually coordinated with several relevant governmental institutions, such as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And through that coordination, we were able to prepare shipments of PPEs to 22 African neighboring countries. Along with that, and in response to the drastic Beirut explosion that Lebanon faced this year, we were actually able to help in that and prepare several shipments of, in collaboration with several relevant governmental entities and several other private entities such as Al Shifa Bank. We're also able to somehow assist in re-evaluating the demands of the governmental entities. And we actually did that starting September this year. And we developed a mechanism to achieve that. And this mechanism tends to allow the requesting parties to link their needs to the allocated budget and to better enable them to define their priorities and reassess their demands. Can we please move to the next slide? Now, moving on to one of the most important parts of my presentation and the most important parts to, of course, the Pakistani exporters and suppliers is to how to be a registered supplier on UPA. This is actually a very easy process, and we can discuss them in four main steps. The first step is to meet the eligibility criteria of UPA, and our eligibility criteria is actually very easy, and it's not that difficult. We have general criteria for the suppliers, and this criteria tends to be more focused on the agents or the suppliers or the distributors that the suppliers have to deal with. For any international supplier to be registered on UPA system, it has to have an authorized agent in Egypt. And this authorized agent tends to legally have and be a holder of what we call a 14C certificate. Other than that, this agent might be an agent that's registered on UPA or an agent that is not registered. So if this agent is not registered, it has also to register along with a supplier. Other than this, some of the criteria that qualifies this agent is that the financial, of course, statements of the agent, if it is, if it actually, this agent has pre-dealt with the government in procuring and supplying medicinal products. Other than that, the warehouse management system of this agent, does it has good storage practice or any other certificates, international certificates that qualifies this agent to be a reliable and a qualified agent. And other than that, the supplier and the products, this supplier specifications set for this type of medicinal products and medical equipment. So the products of these suppliers has to meet the qualifications set for these products. And once, of course, the registration process is done, the supplier has to go and update its profile with all the certificates, all the product criteria, etc. Now, can we please move on to the next slide? Okay, to register on our system or on our digital face is really an easy process. Once you meet the eligibility criteria and you have an authorized agent with a 14C certificate holder, and it's a qualified agent that actually maybe has dealt with the governmental sector before, or even though it has not dealt before, it must like have all the necessary criteria to be once this is done, we move to the next step, and this is the registration step. So there has to be a fee, registration fee paid, and it's an amount of $5,000 for the supplier and $2,000 for the agent. And once these registration fees are deposited in the account of UPA, which is an account in the Central Bank of Egypt, a transaction receipt has to be sent to us on an email that I'll be sharing with any interested supplier, of course. And then once this receipt is emailed, we will email the login credentials to the supplier and the agent, of course, within 2 business days. And once, of course, you receive your login credentials, you can easily access our website and the portal and enter your login credentials and start editing and updating your profile. And that's it. Please, I'm looking forward to all your questions and any other comments in the question session. And again, thank you, everyone. And I'm looking forward to the questions again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Meena. It was very detailed and very informative presentation from your end to tell us about the registration procedures and the step-by-step registration process for the Pakistani exporters to get entrance in the Egyptian market. And presentations were all over here. And now let's begin with the question and answer session. So if anyone has the question, please unmute your mic and ask the question with taking the name of that relevant person. Does anybody have any question regarding the presentation in today's webinars? Please ask your question by unmuting your mic and take the name of the relevant person and ask the question, please.
Ms. Sana, I think there was a question earlier in the comment section, and I hope Dr. Mona from EDA can answer this. The question was, does Egypt accept only US FDA or EMA approved imported drugs for registration?
Actually, we can say that we can accept any product from any country if it meets the requirements. Just in case of FDA and EMA approved drugs, it has, as I said, an accelerated and very fast to registration frames. So this is a favor for them, but we can register any product from any country if it meets our requirements.
Is there any other question by the exporter to any speaker?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you please introduce?
I have question. My name is Daniel and I am from Karachi. And my question is from Mona. How many time they will take for registration for a drug in Egypt?
For an imported product, according to ministerial decrees, I can reshare the screen for the time frames again. Let me share the screen to be easier. As we said, we have different ministerial decrees. The shortest is 820. It takes 6 months for CTD submission. Let's talk about if the Pakistani industry will submit, it will submit as a CTD format. It will take 6 months according to this decree. Other decrees, 425, it's approximately 1 year. And for 645, it may be shorter as it's a fast track registration.
I hope you are satisfied with the answer of Ma'am Mona.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question with Miss Mona. I am Dr. Shahid Javed representing Sami Pharmaceuticals. My question is that if our product is not registered in one of the reference countries, would the regulatory authority of Egypt visit our manufacturing plant for an GMP audit?
This will be required in case of the product is not approved by another reference country. If the company submits a CPP from another reference country stating that the product is marketed there, we can rely on their acceptance, and no visit for inspection is required. If the product is from a non-reference country and not marketed in a reference country, then we will ask for inspection after submitting the site master file for review at first.
And can you tell us kindly about the fees involved in such an inspection?
This question may be collected for the inspection department. I'll get to Ms. Sidra by the answer to be precise and sharp for the answer. As I'm from the registration department, maybe some changes in the late time as we are settling our new regulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, there is another question in the chat box that Naya Saab is asking, that what is the qualification criteria to get entrance in the Egyptian market?
Okay, so for the qualification criteria, first of all, for the supplier, the products has to be registered through ADA for us to qualify this supplier to join our tenders. Another qualification criteria that is actually mandatory is that this supplier has to have an agent in Egypt, and this agent in Egypt should be an authorized agent with a 14C holder, and of course, this agent should have a good financial, good financial statements and good financial solid foundation, and is that this agent should have a good distribution system here in Egypt, so that we will be able to supply in Egypt and to the governmental entities.
Right, ma'am. Is there any other question by the exporter? Okay, I think everybody is satisfied with the presentations and by the speakers. Let's move towards the concluding notes. And
sorry to interrupt you, Sana. There are a few questions in the comments. Mr. Sohail's asking about medical device registration. Sana, can you just check?
Medical device registration in Egypt. Also, if any questions, I'll take it and be back for you, Ms. Sedra, because I'm just in pharmaceutical products.
Yeah, I'd like to answer this. Mr. Sohail, actually, the department is also separate for medical devices, and we are also in the process of arranging a separate special webinar for surgical instruments for registration. So TDAP will be definitely informing you on when that happens, and we'll be giving the relevant people to answer all your questions in that webinar. Ms. Mona, Dr. Mona, there's another question. Is there any particular list of countries for which the BE is accepted by EDA?
The bioequivalence study will be evaluated by our side. It can be done wherever, and it will be evaluated by our side.
okay. I hope everyone is satisfied with the session and the webinar, and there are no more questions now. And for the concluding session, now I would request Mr. Mohammed Mudassir from the Ministry of Commerce, who is the Section Officer Africa, to please give his concluding notes.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all the participants. I'm Mohammed Mudassir and I'm working as Section Officer Africa in Ministry of Commerce. First of all, I would like to congratulate Trade Development Authority of Pakistan and our Trade and Investment Attaché in Egypt, Mrs. Sidra Haq, for organizing this fruitful session for our business community. Before I conclude, I want to inform the participants that under Look Africa policy of Ministry of Commerce, pharmaceutical has been identified as a priority sector. To make a strategy which is specific to this sector for the exports to African countries, we are holding meetings with the stakeholders, and we have conducted an initial meeting with all the stakeholders and identified some courses of action which will definitely help in enhancing exports and cooperation in the pharmaceutical sector with African countries. Talking about Egypt, Egypt definitely has a very sophisticated and well-developed pharmaceutical sector, and there is definitely a lot of potential for cooperation and trade between the two countries in this sector. I'm very thankful to Dr. Mona Musa and Ms. Meena Abdul Ghafoor for their valuable presentations and creating awareness among the business and specifically the pharmaceutical manufacturers of Pakistan. And I'm also thankful to Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan for their valuable presentation and the active participation of His Excellency, the Acting Ambassador of Pakistan in Egypt, is also very appreciated. And last but not the least, I'm thankful to all the participants for their participation and attending this event. And I hope this has been a very informative event for them. Looking forward to collaborating more in these webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mudassar. Before concluding the session, I just wanted to ask or add something with Ms. Sidra, that Ms. Sidra, EDA and DRAP both are in board now. So is there any possibility to sign a formal MOU between both of the associations?
Sana, thank you for that question. Our office is already working on getting that request. We've already forwarded to the relevant authority in EDA, and we'll be pursuing it, and I'll be in touch with DRAP on any updates on this. Thank you, Sana.
That's all from our side for the today's webinar. I hope